Oh, that's a terrible angle. I need this to look up. Ah! All right, guys. So I gotta take off the beanie. It's too hot at the moment. Um, movie review. I like the idea. I thought about it the other day. I was like, Monday morning movie review. So this past weekend, while it was New Year's, and I was sick, and the wifey wasn't feeling good, we basically binged a whole bunch of crap on Netflix and Amazon and other. I did a very short review of Encanto. We watched that before, like right after Christmas, I believe. It's a cute little movie. Nothing groundbreaking. Nothing like earth-shatteringly good. In fact, I would say that as Disney princess movies go, it was pretty bottom tier. Just because they honestly sang too much. And that's saying something. However, I noticed that my framing is crooked. Is what we do now. Okay, so the movie I want to talk about is Don't Look Up. So it's a Netflix movie. I don't know who made this movie offhand, because it has a ton of huge names, like big A-list, A+, A- actors all over this movie. I mean, it stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence, like right off the bat, and both of them not looking at their A game. Although apparently, throughout this movie, Leonardo is called the sexiest scientist. Everybody in this movie is meant to, or almost everybody who is important in the literal sense, is a massive caricature of either real life people, politicians in particular, or bureaucrats, or massive conglomerate tech company owners. And it's all a gigantic parody of what would happen if the worst possible disaster was going to occur and how these people would handle it. And I would say this is a dark comedy at best, but it's not something like at World's End, or things like that. It starts out as an incredibly serious movie. Jennifer Lawrence is a PhD candidate in her particular field, and she's mapping, or at least studying, I believe, supernovas and the effects thereafter. And in studying this particular chunk of space, she happened to discover over the course of, I guess, days, or I don't know, they didn't cover the amount of time. I guess if you're looking close enough, you probably would notice that there is a comet that is clearly a celestial object that is moving, and they identify it as a comet. And frankly, this isn't a spoiler. It's going to hit Earth. So we have a very Armageddon slash Deep Impact situation. So Leonardo DiCaprio plays her professor. She's an obvious thing going on there. And they call NASA initially, who doesn't necessarily believe them. And then they get a hold of other scientists across the world. And then eventually it wraps around to a guy who is literally works for the government, who basically space defense is what they do. They try to keep the world from getting hit by things coming from outer space. Apparently, that is a legitimate thing. And we're not talking about Space Force. We're talking about this actual thing. So their whole concept, they are meant to, if in the event of, they are the people who are supposed to be in charge of this. So once they get him involved, and he realizes it's a thing, the movie starts moving. And this is where everything is still a very serious disaster movie. Having gone into this movie knowing what the movie was about, knowing what these characters were going to be, uh, even knowing the end of the movie ahead of time, I didn't care about spoilers on this one because it wasn't a giant thing. I will talk about spoilers, but I think almost everybody's watching this movie. But basically, what you end up with, they get it through all these scientists, they get it through everybody. So now the head of NASA and this guy who, Dr. Ogilvy, something like that. They get all the way to the White House. They like fly them to the White House, and they're gonna go sit down and talk to Madam President. And when you think female presidents, you probably would think Meryl Streep, honestly. So also, when I say this movie has A-list or above actors, I mean Meryl Streep plays the president. I mean, right up, right out there. You get Kate Blanchett, who plays a TV host, but she's super important to the thing. And you get Jonah Hill, who I still hate. I like Jonah Hill in movies where he's anything but the Jonah Hill stereotype, and he is every single bit of every movie he does with Seth Rogen in this movie. Now, I don't know that Seth Rogen was involved in the making of this movie. If he was, that would have been great. He's not in the movie. Although I could easily have seen him trying to... If they wanted it to be slightly more comedic, they could have put Seth Rogen in Leonardo DiCaprio's spot, where he's trying to play a super serious scientist and a goof, but take out some of the goof. But the whole idea is they're... In the whole background, you got to pay attention to a lot of stuff in the background, TV, news reports, and stuff like that, because what's happening is that the president has just picked a new Supreme Court nominee who is a sheriff, I believe, not even like a governor or anything like that. Is like a sheriff or a constable or something like that in, not Kentucky, but one of those southern-ish states. Cowboy hat wearing, shoot first, ask questions later type. And everyone is questioning why the hell the president would pick this guy, why, and all this scandal and all this stuff starts coming up about the guy. And this is all within the first 20 minutes of, not even 20, like 15 minutes of the movie. And so they're dealing with that. And they're more worried about all of this hubbub to the point that our heroes are sitting outside the Oval Office waiting to be seen all day long and never do. Like, fuck right off. And this is when you first find out that, like, the whole beginning of the movie is all character interactions and setting up the plot. That's obviously what we're going to do. We know the plot. Comet coming to Earth. We have 6 months and 14 days. And literally every minute of the way, they're wasting time. So far. So they come back the next day to see the president. They end up on another long delay. Oh, hold on. There's a gag here and I forgot about it. So the first day while they're sitting outside waiting, there's a general who's with them. He's like a 3-star general, like a really important guy. And he's waiting with them. I don't know the actor's name, but he's in everything. I think he was in at least a few crime shows as like a detective or at least a cop of some sort. I think it had to have been a CSI, I believe, one of those. And then he's been in God knows how many movies. I don't know the guy's name. I just know his face. So at one point, he goes to get them snacks, and he brings like cheese nips and just water for our 3 heroes, and he charges them all $10 for everything. He's like, man, this stuff is so expensive here. I was like, hey, yeah, got money? And so they give him money. And then hours later, Jennifer's character, goes to the commissary, or the kitchen area, I guess is really what it was. And she's like, "Oh, hey, who do I pay for this?" And she's like, "You don't pay anybody; those are free." She's like, "What?" Yeah. So this general, for no reason whatsoever, and then he bails the fuck out, says he's got a call, he's got to go do something else. He charged them for these snacks, and I shit you not, it bothers her this entire movie, and frankly, it should. Like, that's the funniest part about this movie is the running gags. Like, it's very subtle humor, but like it makes sense that over the course of the next 6 months and 14-ish days, the biggest worry in the back of her mind, other than the fact that she knows the Earth is going to be destroyed, because this is a 5 to 10 kilometer wide meteor or asteroid or comet. Either way, it's a big hunk of stuff coming at Earth. And then at some point it changes from to 4 to 9 kilometers wide. And then it's exactly 9 kilometers wide. It's funny that they play with little things like that as it goes with manipulation. And then of course at some point they say that it's the size of Mount Everest, which I guess that might be correct. I don't know. Dimensionally, if you took Mount Everest and made it a clump, if it would be roughly that size or density. Either way, so they finally get this meeting with the president and her son, who is the Secretary of State, I believe. And that's Jonah Hill. And he is absolutely Jonah Hilling the hell out of this role, and you hate him every minute he's on screen. He's a dick to everyone. He's a moron who knows fuck all about anything, downplays everything, and of course is only concerned with appearances. Can you guess what his mom might be like? If you guessed exactly like that, yes, you'd be entirely right. So she is a girl boss of a president, first female president, all that goodness. And she is definitely a strange amalgam of... Everybody's a little bit of an amalgamation of the character they're definitely being caricatures of. And I believe that they're definitely portraying that this would be the type of president Hillary Clinton would be had she won in her younger days. So say she's in her 50s, a little bit better off, that kind of stuff. And there's no Bill in the picture as well. So she's not married in this movie, which they make pretty apparent. Although there is a picture with her blatantly hugging Bill Clinton. But in the other essence of it, she has a bit of Trump in her. Like, there's a little bit in there that's like... So if you took a little bit of the amalgamation of the personalities of those two people and made them the worst that you could probably make them of those people and still keep it realistic, that's what you get in this president. And then imagine the next generation down. Yeah. Now, he's not exactly... while Jonah's character, I'm not gonna bother with anybody's names in this. I don't care. He's not like a direct reference to anybody except maybe Hunter Biden. Like, he's kind of on that level of playboy stupidity, probably into drugs way too much, but you don't really see it kind of situation, but somehow put in an important position of power. Either way, it doesn't matter. They downplay everything that they're told. They're told in a very straightforward and serious manner, the world is going to end in 6 months and 14 days. There's no good way to defend this comet, as we know, currently, and it needs to be done. So what the president says, okay, well, we're going to look at it, and we'll sit back and assess. Cool. So yeah, the first thing that happens is they go to tell the most powerful person, quote unquote, on the planet that the world is ending and we need to start dealing with it. They're told to, well, it's not that important right now. We'll look at it and see what we want to do later. Even the guy who works for the government and NASA, who's supposed to fix this problem, is told to basically stand down and not do much. And that's the entire story of this movie. This movie is incredibly shallow plot-wise. End of Days is coming. You have basically Chicken Little trying to get anyone to listen, and it failing everywhere across the board, or not going to plan because they get hooked up with the wrong people who just make a joke out of everything. They get twisted. They get memeified hard. Especially when they go on the talk show, which is very similar. It's so funny. So almost nothing is real. They don't really use real TV networks or anything like that. Obviously, we're not dealing with a real person and its president, but a weird cartoonish version of a president. And we get a talk show that is seemingly very serious at first, and then you find out it is just feel-good, memeified thing of the week. Oh, we get Ariana Grande in front of them as this pop star, basically playing the worst version of herself in reality, and they're dealing with her breakup with this other rapper. This doesn't sound familiar. And like, that story proceeds with them coming on trying to tell the world that it's ending, because the president wouldn't listen. They didn't want them to tell anybody, so they decided to try to get it out there. They even go to, I think it's supposed to be the New York Herald, and they say, look, go on this talk show, we'll set you up, we're going to run the story after you do this, and once people have it on their radar, we can get the story, we can get out there, all this stuff. And as soon as they do it, no one takes them seriously, it gets turned into a meme, and then it just disappears. There's nothing they can do. It's not until, I think, a few weeks later, after doing their damnedest, that somebody finally listens, and the president finally does the right thing. Now, the reason the president does the right thing gets immediately called out, which is great. I don't want to spoil everything about this movie, and like talking about all of the details, some of it does get repetitive. They come up on this big rise, and then things fall. So what happens here is now they believe them. They tell the world what's going on. They make a gigantic political show of it. So imagine some type of government official taking a massive disaster, world-ending potentiality, and turning it into a gigantic political stunt. You're making it all about them. So, when I say that sometimes these characters are an amalgamation, this is one of those times, but then you also start to realize that as time goes on, everybody's on board. The world really comes together to try to figure out this problem for the most part, but mostly America's going to solve this problem. Because America. They don't actually do America in there, but it's the idea that they're trying to unite because midterms are coming up. No joke. It's a little weird, honestly. And I don't think they actually say what year this is. I think it's just meant to be now-ish. At the same time, you get this tech billionaire who's developed a brand new cell phone that is always monitoring you, and its AI knows when you're upset and then immediately tries to give you something to offset it. So he pretends to be sad in the middle of this TED Talk or whatever, where he's trying to sell the new thing. He pretends to be sad and immediately shows him a picture of a puppy riding on a chicken. And it makes him laugh. And then immediately it's over. So he develops this AI tech in this ridiculous phone that's super expensive that is monitoring you at all times and feeds you the information both that they tell it to and that it thinks that will get you immediately off of said thing. Now, he gets involved with this eventually. His technology and stuff like that is important, and he is 100% an amalgamation of the biggest tech giants that we know of. He even speaks in a very similar way to someone. His tech development is very much like this other person, and his responses to when people talk to him are very similar to the way this other person is. So when I say caricatures and amalgamations of the worst things of these types of people, they're all out there. And he is definitely out there. So as time goes on, they work through it. They got this whole solution. They have the worst possible person being Ron Perlman, not the actor, but the guy he's playing, who's an ex-military guy who has had a whole lot of problems, including talking down to and yelling at and cursing at fat kids to get in shape. I think on the White House lawn. He's the whole program he was supposed to be in charge of. They choose him to go save the Earth. They do this whole Armageddon style thing. We're launching every nuke we got. We're gonna go blow this thing up. We're gonna change its trajectory. They do all that, and then stuff happens. I'm gonna leave it at that. And then that's where the movie takes its major twist. Which, sadly, is not that big of a twist. If you're actually paying attention to reality, this is showing you what is generally going on behind the scenes. Not trying to be conspiratorial, but there are things that are always at play in reality, especially when it comes to political things, when it comes to social things, when it comes to all those things. There's always stuff going on behind the scenes, and this movie shows you everything behind the curtain that is supposedly happening, and gives you a very, very real reason. Like, this movie is so cartoonish and real at the same time that a friend of mine had an anxiety attack watching it. He like literally is like, they're literally saying and doing the thing. Like, I can't take, this is too real. I was like, that's the point of this movie. Everything about this movie is cartoonishly overblown to the point of actual reality. It's just like, wait a minute. It's like, you look at it and you're like, hold the hell on. Even to someone being something of a civil servant, someone who is the seemingly good and down to earth, being made out in the public eye as a superstar and now the face of solving a problem, and that superstardom corrupting them, and now pushing them against all their morals, pushing them to do things and say things that don't really jive or make sense. But this person has now become the healing face of the planet. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. I don't know when they made this movie. It had to have been made pre-COVID, I guess. But the cast is generally small whenever somebody's on screen. I think rarely is there more than maybe 15 people in a scene together. I would believe that maybe this was made in 2019, 2020, before things really kicked off, and also before they really knew. But I have a feeling that some of it was made blatantly later because of how certain characters act and the things they do, and the reaction of the world around them. So the whole concept of Don't Look Up becomes important. So the actual title of the thing does make sense eventually. And then I'm going to tell you guys, I knew where this movie was going because I heard somebody else review it and discuss it. My wife, on the other hand, had no clue. And I told her, I was like, we're going to watch this and you're going to let me know what you think. She did not expect the ending of this movie. She really didn't. She honestly did not. And that leads me to believe, knowing her as she is, and this is not me talking bad about Miss Shoky, that for people who live now, I mean, literally are living right here and now, there are those who are paying attention to what's going on in the world. There are those with surface knowledge only. And then there are those who are paying real attention and looking into things that are happening and looking at how things have been going and how things are run, and decisions that are made that don't make any sense, and things that are like, wait, what is this? And then you see the way things are spun, you see the way things have been told to people, and then you, for those who are paying attention outside of what they're just told, you won't expect the ending. And that is how this movie goes. And that's the funny part about it, is that for her, she didn't see this ending coming. I was like, I would have absolutely seen this ending coming regardless. And now, that's not a negative thing towards her, because she still lives in a certain amount of hope, and a certain amount of things, and a certain amount of disbelief. And for a lot of things, that's good. But this movie, honestly, and I hate to use this term, especially since The Matrix just happened, it might red pill people. And I don't necessarily mean that in a this side versus this side type of red pilling, but in the maybe you should look up. And I think that I don't know how this movie got made. I don't understand it. Like, I need to look, whenever I finish up here, I'm going to look at it. I'm pointing over here because I can pull it up on Netflix. I need to see who wrote this movie, where it came from. I guess I can look it up on Google. Because I don't understand how Hollywood made this. This is a hardcore red-pilling movie. And I gotta wonder if the people in charge, because it is Hollywood, made it with the intention of scenes that happen later in the movie and about how they think of certain people, and I think they made it in jest of those people, or did they truly make it to be this other way? Because seeing the people who are playing these characters, I gotta wonder, it's like, wait, how is this movie actually being perceived? Because I could see somebody watching this movie and going, ha, they're totally making fun of those idiots. Cannot believe that. But then you look at it and go, who is this movie making fun of? Who is this movie actually portraying? And that's why I said, like, it seems odd that, like, they did make amalgamations of these characters, especially when I say, like, the president. She's definitely Hillary, but she's also got some Trump in there. More about Trump's ego and the way he handled things, I guess, but it also is way more the drives of Hillary. Not that she doesn't have an ego by any means. If you watch that whole crying at reading her acceptance speech almost 6 years later. Either way, leaving that aside, and then the actual kind of resolution to the movie is like this super joke, I guess. And then there's payoff. I love the payoff at the end. Although it is kind of like, okay, this is how we do this now. So it is definitely making a political statement, but I guess depending on where you are, you know, in what level that you see things, you might see this movie differently. But from most of the people I've seen talk about this movie, they kind of all have the same agreeance on what stance this movie was taking. Now, does that mean they all have the same opinion? Or does it just mean that they're all on the same level of paying attention to what's going on? Because it pokes very hard at reality. It pokes very hard at the bear, as it were. In fact, it pretends to be the bear a lot of the way through this movie. And you, at one point, you literally only have two main characters, still trying to do the right thing. And you start seeing the way said things are being handled and communicated and twisted. And you look at it and you go, this is now. And you're like, if we literally if this was now, the way the world currently is, and this was happening, there, with the exception of some of the really far absurdities, you could see it happening exactly like this. And it's just like, that's why I said, it's like, it wanted to be a caricature, but then it's like, no, this is reality. This is scary. That this is what they're pointing out, and what we've seen of how things get done, and how things get pushed around, and how the machine works, and who runs the machine. This is real, and it's scary, and you have to laugh at it at the end, because if you don't, you're probably going to be terrified, like my friend who actually was having an anxiety attack watching it. But fantastic movie otherwise. Acted out great. The fact that they bring in Tyler Perry to basically be what's his name? What is it? He was on, was it Michael and Kelly or whatever it was like that? Michael Strahan. So he's a very Michael Strahan type character. So it's really kind of funny. He's actually, if I had to stretch it a little bit, I would say he's like a little bit of Michael Strahan mixed with a little bit of Don Lemon. I think at one point they actually have CNN on. I think right near the end they actually do utilize actual CNN for one scene. I think that's interesting. There are actual commentators and other people like that in this movie every now and then for like montages and stuff like that, which is interesting. But then like actual real like megastars don't exist it's not our reality in the same way for that. That's where we get into the absurdity. But then I guess in that aspect, Cate Blanchett is playing an interesting form of like Kelly Ripa with like Megyn Kelly, not really in a negative way, but more in the appearance sake, because it's hard to believe Megyn Kelly is 50. Actually, I think she's 51. Anyways, so like she's playing like a Megyn Kelly with a Kelly Ripa with a little bit of, God, I don't know who the other. There's somebody else in there who would have to be more left-leaning perspective, realistically, a little bit, because you can't have like this is not a right-leaning movie. I'll put it that way, if you're following political affiliations whatsoever. But it's also like, I don't know. There's something in there. I'm just like I'm drawing those comparisons. So like, because I said they're like amalgamations of real life people who are in these exact same situations. That's where you kind of have to be like, it's kind of like this. But yeah, I'd like Leonardo's character. What's really funny, I'll bring it up here. So I'll bring up Leonardo DiCaprio's character, and then Adam Chance from Home Free. It literally looks the same, especially from this music video. Come on. Like, if you don't know Home Free, you're not paying attention to my third channel. It doesn't have to make sense. But anyway, that's it for this movie review. I didn't want to spoil a lot. I'm not going to do a spoiler review. That's pretty much covered. If this gets you interested enough to watch the movie on Netflix, do it. I enjoyed it, even though it is incredibly, the other thing is, it's not necessarily red pilling, it's also black pilling a lot. I felt very black pilled at the end of that. Though the wifey might have felt a little more red pilled, because she was very confused as to how that ending came about. I'm like, you need to pay more attention. So, but I'll catch you guys on the next one. I like this idea of Monday morning movie review, so we'll see what happens. Because if we watch movies, then we do that. Like, what else did we watch? We watched other stuff. I don't remember. We're still going through Supernatural. We're on like season 7 of Supernatural right now. And I need to start watching other things that I want to watch. There's a series out there. I want to watch The Expanse. I've heard that's amazing, and I need to watch it. But I don't know if the wifey will watch it. So it is what it is. But I'll see you guys next time. Remember, as always, keep on nerding.